Hari Om. We start with a prayer. Om Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhusya Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidyat Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Amadeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Hari Om. We are looking from the point of removing the obstructions for the spiritual growth, and for that these are the raga dveshas that are remnant and preventing me to own up the knowledge, which is essentially aparoksha jnanam. I have the paroksha jnanam by listening to the scriptures for a prolonged length of time, and I still feel that I have not realized. So it's not something to realize, it's not some experience that I had to do in sitting in a meditation. So Nidhidhyasana is not a sitting down and meditating on something, but it is contemplating on the reality that I have learned through the Sravanam and Mananam. Essentially, I have understood as I am the totality, but that's not recognized. It's only left as a paroksha jnanam, as the knowledge of something is infinite. But I have not established myself that I am that infinite, that ownership of that, the totality has not been recognized because of the obstacles, because there still raga dveshas are there. And for that only scriptures recognize the problem and recommends the Nidhidhyasanam. So Nidhidhyasanam is required for those who have not realized through Shravanam and Mananam, and that depends upon the adhikara, means the quality of the student who is listening to the scriptures. If the student has already purified the mind, like Nachiketas in the Kathopanishad, Sravanam is enough. But you need additional Mananam and reflection, and then Nidhidhyasanam, depending upon the qualities or how much the mind has been purified beforehand through Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga. Now, since it's not purified, but I have enough purified to listen to the scriptures, but not enough to own up this knowledge, it remains as a paroksha jnanam. And to make it as the aparoksha jnanam, that means ownership, that is Mahavakya, has to be assimilated that I am that indeed, not some Atma is that, because I am that Atma and I am infinite, and which is contradictory to all our experiences, and therefore we need to have a full faith and the understanding of what is being pointed out by Vedanta, and that's what is essentially being refined. We took up this sloka 333 of the Viveka Chudamani that says Satyabhi Sandhana Rato Vimuktaha Satya Abhisandhanaha, the one who is contemplating on the Sat aspect or the truth aspect, Satyam, or Sat, the pure existence aspect, is reveling in that, he is called Vimuktaha. So now it is also an indication of how I should do Nidhidhyasanam. It's not necessarily sitting in one place and closing my eyes and contemplating. That can be done, but once I open my eyes, then I am back to the transactional world, and again I am involved in the raga dveshas. Then that is not really what is implied. What need to be implied is this Sat or Satya Abhisandhanaha Rataha, the one who is reveling in the absolute truth while closing his eyes or opening his eyes. So when I am opening the eyes, I cannot but see the plurality. So the problem is now, while seeing the plurality, while transacting the plurality, I had to recognize the Sat aspect of it. That means in all the inert world other than I am, in an anatma, anatma is other than the atma, anything that is not a subject which can be objectified comes under anatma. So atma is the subject and anatma is the object, and objectifiable has attributive content. That's a property of an object. So anything that is attributive is object, and attributive is that which differentiates one object from the other. So essentially, when I open my eyes, I can only see attributive knowledge, because eyes can only see forms and colors, and one form and color is different from other form and color. So the division and distinction and separation is inherent in my transactions, and I cannot avoid it, because the senses are only tuned or to differentiate only. So therefore I have all the time mithya abhisandhana rataha. So the transactionally I cannot but differentiate when I open my eyes. So when the sabda sparsa rupa rasa gandha, all those five senses on the sense objects differentiate each object, and the more the subtle the senses are, it finds subtler and subtler distinctions. So when I go to a shop, everything looks like a red sarees only, but the shades of red are only can be noticed by those who are sensitive eyes, and they can differentiate between different types of the redness or the orangeness and so on. So that's why you find varieties and varieties of sarees, and it all looks same to us, but those who do not know, they see only red and only 7 colors, but for them there are, even in red there are different shades, and in each color there are different shades, and all that is due to sensitivity of the equipment which is trained to differentiate. And that's what is essentially the training is. The scientist differentiates and classifies each the species under this phylum, this phylum, this phylum, because he develops the knack of differentiating a finer and finer details in his field. Same way, in every field of transactional world, there is a further and further differentiation, and that's why the one becomes a super and super specialist in everything also. So other than when I'm transacting, when I open my eyes, I cannot but see differences. So therefore, in spite of the differences, I should keep the knowledge in mind that there is one that is changeless entity. So everything is changing in this world. Everything is continuously is called Jagat. Jayate, Gacchate, iti Jagat. That means it keeps on continuously changing. And the law of the changes is there has to be changeless entity. That's called law of conservation. The law of conservation is something has to be conserved in the changes. That's what is called, in the chemistry we call it balancing equation. What we are balancing is mass on this side is equal to mass on the other side, because matter cannot be destroyed. That's a law of conservation. And the energy on this side has to be energy on that side. So either exothermic or endothermic reactions has to be balanced properly, both from the point of matter and from the point of energy. If the energy is absorbed, now we have to talk about the universe is giving the energy to the system, and that's called endothermic, and universe is getting energy from the system, that's called exothermic reactions. All that is implied essentially means that there is a law of conservation, and the objective world only looks for the conservation of a matter and energy, and matter and energy are not different according to Einstein, because there is a transformation law between the energy and matter. But what is absolute law of conservation is what stated by Krishna in the 2nd chapter under 16th sloka, nasato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha. That which exists can never cease to exist. That means the existence part of it is conserved, and even one form of existence is transformed into another form of existence. Existence cannot change, only forms and all that thing change. Therefore the whole creation is nothing but transformation of one form of existence into another form of existence. The chemical reaction is nothing but transformation of one form of matter into another form of matter, since matter is conserved. So matter doesn't undergo any change, and one form of energy transforming into another form of energy, but energy is total energy is conserved. In the same way, the existence part of it doesn't change, only expression of that existence in various names and forms will be changing. And if I have that knowledge of Vedanta, where law of conservation is understood, where the pure existence alone was there before creation and it became many, and therefore all the nama and rupa are the names and forms which are attributive content, that which senses gather only, because sensor cannot gather the substantive which is a pure existence, because pure existence is not perceptible. Therefore what I see is only names and forms. So whenever I open my eyes in the Nidhidhyasana, now with the knowledge of Vedanta, I had to see in and through every name and form, that which is the very source for which it came, by which it is sustained, into which it goes back, which I cannot see through the senses, but now I understand cognitively or intellectually through the study of Vedanta. It is nothing but existence only, because every object has to exist for me to see or for me to perceive. It can be object of Shabda, Swarsa, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. I cannot see Gaga Boo because I don't know if the Gaga Boo exists or not. If there is an existence, I have no knowledge of it. So existence of an object should be there, and knowledge of its existence should be there in my mind. There may be something that I don't know and I have not seen, and therefore I have not heard also. Therefore neither the perceptually I don't know, or by the Shabda Pramana I don't know, or by the Anumana Pramana I don't know. In that case, its existence cannot be established. It's only probability, only depending upon somebody else's statement. Scientists say there are electron protons, but I don't see electron protons. Now of course I can see, because of the electron microscopes and all that, its effects can be noticed, and therefore its signature can be seen. In the same way, one can see that from the scripture now becomes a pramana, where what the existence itself is the source, because I cannot see the existence, though I should have the faith that on the scripture statement that existence alone was there before creation, and itself it is of the nature of consciousness, because this existent consciousness cannot be analyzed by the objective scientist, and therefore objective scientist, because he cannot use his objective tools and say they are not there, it's all dogma, because he is using inappropriate tools to evaluate the system. And therefore he himself is a conscious entity, he cannot investigate himself also, because the subject cannot be objectified. He may say this body he can analyze, and even in the mind and intellect, which mind and intellect itself cannot be analyzed cognitively, or it only has to infer, because a lot of arguments are there, is a mind a matter or mind is not matter, and so on and so forth. If you go to Google and ask for the mind, and there is a psychology, the psychologists have their theories, and the philosophers have theories, and each theory will be questioned is in terms of what is a mind, and is a thought, what is the nature of the thought. So they can only, an objective scientist only can talk about some alpha waves or beta waves, which he can measure using his electrodes. But waves are not thoughts. Waves are essentially measurable entities that is seeable, but thought cannot be seen or quantified by objective tools. So he cannot, the one who is thinking that there is no reality, all are dogma, he is using the thought process, but he cannot even analyze the very thought that he is using to communicate. And that's why we have to be very careful. This is objective scientists cannot approach that, because his tools are not valid for approach. That's why Vedanta becomes a pramana. So I should have the faith in that, because what I see is only nama rupa, and what is the truth cannot be seen. Therefore, he says, what I have to have by Vedanta Sravana is Satya Abhisandhana Rataha. the one who can revel in the truth. The truth is that which remains the same all periods of time. That means that which is Trikala Abhajitam Satyam, that which remains the same all periods of time. And world is continuously changing. Yesterday things are different, today's things continuously changing all the time. The seeds have become plants, plants have become trees, trees have producing new seeds, and the new seeds have become plants. The evolution and cycle of life goes on continuously. Even our body is continuously changing, and every time the new cells are created and old cells are dying, and this is a continuous process itself. But I say I am the same person, that's called Pratyabhijna. That says that I was the same person when I was a child, I went to this school, that school. So that I am didn't change, even the body changed, the mind changed, the intellect changed. So changeless entity alone is real. That's what is essentially the Satyam. So I had to keep this knowledge all the time in the mind. Therefore, Satya Abhisandhanarataha, the one who revels in that truth, this all the time is essentially Vimuktaha. This is also called now a Nirvikalpa Samadhi. We'll go into the details of what exactly Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Viveka Sudamani goes into exhaustive details, but essentially this is, the people think that I had to sit and have to think, and I had to stop thinking process. That's itself become a struggle, because the mind cannot but think, and only stop thinking when the mind goes to completely into deep sleep state or in the coma where mind is not even active. And that's not knowledge, because for the knowledge, mind has to be there. It says the mind has to be destroyed. If the mind is destroyed, you die. Mind can never be destroyed. But what is to be destroyed is wrong notions in the mind has to be destroyed. That can be only destroyed by right understanding only. You don't call it wrong, right notions. Notion is itself means it is wrong. Therefore, by correct understanding, one can remove the ajnanam. And therefore, Satya Abhisandhanaha, the one who is constantly keep this in the mind, is Rataha, is reveling in that. So that becomes in fact a Sahaja Samadhi, or also Nirvikalpa Samadhi, because there is no Vikalpa in the Sat. Vikalpa means modification. That's how we define the Sat. So Nirvikalpa Samadhi, we are now defining in a broader sense, where in spite of the thoughts, there is something that is constant all the time. What is constant in spite of the thought? Thoughts come and thoughts go, but I am conscious of the thought. So this thought came, I am conscious of that. So consciousness illumining the thought. Without the illumination of the thought, illumination by the consciousness, thought cannot be known. This thought gone, so when I am looking at the chair, I see a chair thought in my mind, and chair thought is gone. When I look on the other side, I see a table. Now table thought has come. Now what happened to the chair thought? Chair thought, it's not a table thought on top of the chair thought. Chair thought is gone, replaced by the table thought. But what is not replaced is, I am conscious of the chair thought, I am conscious of the table thought, I am conscious of this, I am conscious of that. So every transaction when I open my eyes, I am constantly conscious of this. So whole world I am being conscious of all out throughout my transactions. Therefore, in the changing things, what is changeless entity is, I am the conscious of that consciousness. That's why the scripture says in the Upanishad, Pratibodha Viditam Matam. It is revealed in every knowledge, because in every knowledge, the knower has to be there. Knower is nothing but a conscious entity, plus what is known has to be existing. Non-existence cannot be known. Therefore, existence in the form expressed as an object, consciousness in the form expressed as a subject, have to be together for me to be conscious of the existence of the thought in my mind. And the thought in my mind is nothing but the expression of, or the transformation of, object outside in terms of the attributive content of the object, because I cannot see the substantive of the object. Therefore, in all this process, Satya Abhisandhanaha, I have to constantly remind myself in all my transactions to the degree possible, day in and day out, constant awareness of that becomes a Nidhidhyasana. So my mind in that case will not be getting involved in the activities of the world where the sense enjoyments is there. Therefore, raga dveshas automatically will go away. But if I pay attention to the names and forms where if I had to do proper transactions, because if I had to know whether I'm walking on the down or up and there's a step down or step down, this is all common, everything is near this, I'll fall down only. So I had to operate properly. So the food is still different from garbage is garbage. So just because everything is nothing but all sat doesn't mean that I cannot differentiate in the transactional purposes. So a jnani or ajnani also has to transact with the world. Jnani also has to transact with the world where he has to differentiate. Differentiation does not leave the knowledge, because just as a scientist does not leave the knowledge that there are electrons, protons or neutrons, yet garbage is garbage and food is food. While knowing the truth that they are all same from the point of fundamental particles, only packaging is different, yet you can differentiate for transactions, because the transactions at the package level, that's called transactional level, without losing sight of the truth behind the transactions. Therefore, Nidhidhyasana has to involve, this is Satya Abhisandhanarataha, for constant reflection on the truth underlying the transactions, and he is the one Vimuktaha, he is the one who is liberated. Whereas the one who pays attention only to the Nama Rupa, where you have to pay attention where is required, but otherwise, when it is not otherwise, when you have to transfer, you have required, otherwise you have to see oneness that pervades the whole universe. That's why Lord is there in every transaction also, and I should be a full-time devotee, because in every setup Lord is there, and that becomes a devoted action. Devotee plus action becomes a devoted action when I'm transacting in the world, and that knowledge has to be kept in mind. And therefore, with all this understanding, so Nidhidhyasana requires constant, continuous, and therefore it is the deliberate understanding of the truth behind it. So how should I do it? It is as often as possible, as intensely as possible, as long as possible, as repeatedly as possible. Possible of what? What is to see what is the underlying truth. And underlying truth is not some Brahman. It is I am the pure existent consciousness, and the consciousness has to be infinite, existence has to be infinite. Therefore it includes both the subject and the object that arise in the mind. I am beyond the subject-object duality that I can see even in the deep sleep state, because I am there. There is no subject-object duality that arises because of the mind. But I have no knowledge of it because the mind is required. So with the mind now I have to recognize. That's why it's called cognitive understanding. And Nidhidhyasana has to be done with the mind only. And with the mind I have to recognize that I am not the mind. I am that enlivens the mind. And we'll continue the next talk about what are the obstacles for spiritual growth. With this we stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.